Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the recap. It is about 3 o'clock, just to timestamp it on Friday. Still about an hour left in the day, but we're going to do an early recap here as many traders are looking to get to the beach, and I am one of them. So what can we say about this week? Well, this week was a week of pause. We really saw that buying pressure that we saw last week, that aggressive buying pressure, really contract this week. And I think the best way to see it is if we look at the daily chart here, the S&Ps, you can see basically today and you know the last couple of trading sessions, very, very muted. No real selling pressure, but no buying pressure. Just a pause in the action. Definitive resistance here came in. We saw it on Tuesday and then again Thursday. Highs around 1407 in the actual S&Ps. If we flip over and take a look at the spiders, which is I know is a widely traded instrument here, 141 in the SPYs. We saw that high on Tuesday, and we saw it retested again on Thursday, but no selling from that level, just really more of a sideways contraction here. So traders are going to watch, this week's high early next week for clues about potentially another move up into these prior highs. This is a weekly spider chart, and we can see just knocking on the door of the March and again April highs. This is proven to be a pretty strong area of resistance. It's been tested twice, and we can make the assumption that we might see another test again here in the next week or so. So keep an eye on what the futures do early next week off of this week's high 141. And if we do trade through that level in the spiders, we could see another momentum type trade higher, as this daily chart tells me that this buying pressure may not be over. So we're going to keep an eye on that level next week. But for the better part of this week, very muted price action, volume levels drying up as we get into the throes of summer. What we want to see here is a real good volume surge into new highs. But that being said, we may not get that here in August. So we'll see, and we'll keep an eye on the day-to-day price action as we always do here at T3 Live. Scott will keep you abreast of that next week. As far as Scott goes, my man, the Red Dog, doing his triathlon this weekend, as well as a lot of other traders here at T3 Live. I mentioned that yesterday, so best of luck to all of you who are participating this weekend. I believe it's tomorrow here in New York City. Let's talk about a couple of stocks. Market didn't really give us much to work with for the better part of this week. Apple, a great correlation here. You see, basing here at the highs. We broke through that 620 level. Volume wasn't what it should be, but it is August, and the stock is building a nice bull flag basing pattern here. And I know there's going to be a lot of traders looking at this early next week for continuation through the 625 mark, which was this week's high. Averages slowly creeping up here, and that could be the catalyst. Next stop, would be prior 52-week highs, which were back from April. Right around 644 was our prior 52-week high. So a lot of traders keeping an eye on this, next potential leg up, and that could be as early as Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of next week. Some other notables that have held in relatively well. Google, again, a lot of these big cap tech stocks performing very well here. Really not a lot of buying this week, but no selling. Really just a pause in action. Been a very difficult and choppy trade since basically the better part of August, since the month started. We've seen some pullbacks and some launch higher, and a lot of back and forth, not really committed type price movement, but still very healthy in terms of structure. And we are going to watch this one again for another potential rally leg. It does have some resistance to the left that it's going to have to contend with, namely these prior highs back from March and April. So we're going to keep an eye on the price action there in Google as well. Another notable standout is Mellanox, MLNX, one of these biotechs that just really has gone through a great period of accumulation. Strong surges of buying. Saw a nice week and a half base, broke out in the middle of this week, still hanging in. The trend, is still intact so long as it stays above, these pivot lows around 102.50. The one concerning thing here is this weekly chart It's not concerning. It just, it's going through this parabolic type price action. And parabolic curves generally, you can look at the slope at which it increases, and you can see pretty much going vertical here. So when this does find some sort of resistance, and at some point it will, I expect this to give you a very strong pullback here, as it's pretty extended on some of these higher time frames. But for now, let's trade off of the daily charts and let's use these smaller levels. And so long as this, like I said, 102.50 holds, the trend here still remains up, and you should look to buy pullbacks here, possibly even into the 8-period MA, which is around 107, 106, 108 area. So keep an eye on that trade into next week. I guess the one standout on the downside would have to be Priceline this week. Priceline post earnings, just a massive haircut, big selling, and when you see a stock like this break with this type of volume, you can see the volume was just massive. It's telling you something has significantly changed, obviously, and no buyers here in Priceline, not even on day 3, still just sort of probing lows. And if we do take out Thursday's lows, which are yesterday's lows, we could see another wave of selling down below that 550 mark. So we're going to keep an eye on it as much as we would like to be a buyer here. And the reason I say we like to be a buyer is that it's flirting with this 550 area of prior support. So there's definitely an area of short-term support down here. That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to bounce. It could certainly probe lower and trade into this lower end of the range down here, which right now stands around 440, 450 plus or minus. So, be on alert here, as this is a high beta, high flying stock, and as easily as it went straight up is as easily as it might come straight back down. So we'll be on the lookout for clues for that trade early next week. But when these things break, when these high beta stocks tend to break, and what we'll call CMG, this is a weekly of CMG, it tends to be over for a while, and any buying here is usually short-lived. So keep that in mind if you're keeping an eye on Priceline. Facebook, not much to say here. We didn't do that much this week. You look back for the better part of the last 4 or 5 days, really no movement. We saw some ebbs and flows, but nothing really sound in terms of buying or even selling. A little bit of a pause in the action. The action obviously has been to the downside. A little bit of a higher low, excuse me, in the middle part of this week off of those lows from 20. But that being said, the stock is not screaming as a buy signal. If anything, we got to watch how it reacts here into the 8-period MA. As last time it traded into this 8-period, we saw some selling right off of that level. So we'll keep an eye on Facebook into next week as well. So it's been just sort of sum up, it's been a very muted week. There have been some, good scalping intraday trades, but that's really been the theme for this week. It's the money has been made right at the open for the better part of the first 45 minutes. After the first hour of the day, plus or minus, things have dried up substantially. Look at the spiders. For the better part of the week, we can look at like a 30-minute chart and get just sort of a view of the week that was going back the last 4 or 5 days. Very, very muted, flat 21 EMA, sideways price action, just no impulse, no commitment, no real direction. Now, that being said, there hasn't been any selling, but there also hasn't really been any buying for just, moments, 15 minutes up, 15 minutes down, that type of trading. Really built for the scalpers, the short-term, traders looking at 5 and, 10-minute type time frames. For those of you that are a little bit longer term, quiet week, and I suspect it may be quiet into the end of the month. That being said, we could see another breakout through that 141 in the SPYs. We could even pull back. So, be on alert, be tactical, be strategic. Make sure you tune into the morning call come Monday morning, as Scott will probably have a whole bunch of different ideas covering banks and tech and, a bunch of different sectors that we like to look at here at T3 Live. Have a great weekend, and I will talk to you back on the VTF come Monday morning. Take care.